My boyfriend and I had previously always considered trying acid, but we bought into the rumors about it making you crazy or making your brain bleed. We still wanted to try it, but felt extremely cautious about it. So when it turned up in my kitchen along with 3 of my hippie friends we'd invited over, I knew we had to at least buy it and decide later. We bought 2 doses of 2 hits each, estimated at about 400 grams per dose, midweek, and said we'd decide by Thursday night to do it Friday if we chose to take it at all. We researched the rumors surrounding acid and found them to be deemed a bunch of bull instituted by ridiculous anti-drug propaganda like reefer madness and generally negative governmental connotations of it. I am especially inexperienced with drug use, having just started using cannabis regularly last year. The first drug I ever used was Dramamine, though. My boyfriend and I also shared that experience together a couple months before I first smoked pot. I experienced flashbacks almost daily from using Dramamine up until my acid trip. Thursday night we decided together that we were having a pretty good week, that we were happy, and that with our out-of-town friend coming to hang out on Friday with us that we'd probably have a pretty good time doing it. We had a nice relaxing Friday. He went to work and I had no classes, so we both did low stress level activities all day. I visited him at lunch, which put us both in a good mood for the rest of the day as well. I went to work for 5 hours and came home after, ready to trip. Our friend came over at about 10 and I took one of my 2 hits. We all had a drink and smoked a bowl together. My boyfriend said he was ready and he took his 2 hits and I took my other hit about 45 minutes after my first one. We were excited rather than nervous, which helped the general mood and anxiety you can feel after first dosing. We started out just chilling out, waiting for it to hit, when I started sitting on the floor and began collecting things in the room I really liked. I gathered them up and sat down in the pile of them and started watching Alice in Wonderland that we had put in earlier. I became overwhelmingly happy looking at my pets who I really love and at pictures of my boyfriend and me in my scrapbook. I started crying because I realized that I have a wonderful life and that I'm so lucky for everything I have. I had been raped about 4 years ago, and at this time during my trip I started telling my boyfriend that I felt like that had no importance and effect on me any longer. I was so happy and realized how much I enjoyed my life that all of my past eventually became entirely unimportant to me. Nothing was melting at this point, but I became very in love with colors. First, purple that was in a Jimi Hendrix poster on the wall, and then I started to love pink, too. I have a pink stuffed flamingo and old pink Chuck Taylors that I also started to feel extremely attracted to. I also got out my guitar and an old stuffed animal I've had for almost my whole life. As I held the stuffed animal, she began to feel real and like a child. I held her like a baby against me very carefully, and I noticed that she was a hue of yellow instead of brown like she really is. I also had fabric swatches and some fake sunflowers that I liked looking at for an extended period of time as well. At this time I kept bothering my boyfriend to look at stuff because I thought he could see the same things as me, and he was starting to get frustrated and we'd argue and confuse each other pretty badly. Before I started getting too out of control collecting stuff, our sober friend asked if I could get him a beer to distract me. I got one out for him, and I noticed the Hello Kitty magnetic clips on the fridge and also became obsessed with those. He told me just to bring both to the table where he was. I stopped short of the table to look at the carpet and noticed that all the fibers looked like mealworms and were moving all over each other. I was still pretty with it in the mind, so it didn't scare me because I could remember it was still carpet. I laughed and took him the stuff. He put the clip on his shirt so I'd stay sitting down at the table in order to let my boyfriend look at things for himself. I did for a long time, and the above the table gave me a feeling of an interrogation room and it made me nervous. I looked into the living room and it seemed like the room had stretched and I wanted to go over and be with my boyfriend. I started to get up, but our friend called him over, so I was happy and the light looked like sunshine instead. He asked if he could take pictures of our pupils because they were pretty big, and he took pictures of us before I started thinking that my whole existence is this acid trip and that my only purpose is for these pictures to be taken, and that the only thing anyone will ever know of me are these pictures that will be published and looked at and used as an example. I started to freak out and think this over and over, so our friend put the camera away and told me that everything was okay and that I should sit down and make him some acid art. I thought it was a great idea and felt better, but my boyfriend said that he felt trapped inside and wanted to go outside. Would our friend please take us? So after a confusing 20 minutes of forgetting and remembering that we wanted to go outside, we finally left my apartment, both of us trippers with a stuffed animal. The cold felt like a blade through me vertically and I tried to not let it consume me. We went up and sat in our friend's truck and really started to trip out. The lights from the city were beautiful and branches of trees moved like blooming flowers. I kept thinking that the lights behind me were cars coming into park, but there were none around. My boyfriend asked me what I was looking at, and when I told him, he said he saw the same thing. We got the skateboard out of our friend's truck and my boyfriend went and was able to do this amazing trick and landed it primo on its side. He tried to do something simple and he landed his knee on the edge of it and scraped himself, but he said he didn't want it to hurt, so he didn't let it hurt. On the way back inside, I began to see rainbow fractals all over the place. They left a pattern on everything I looked at, even my hands. I looked in the sand outside and it looked like living stone cacti, very beautiful. Once back inside, we passed a wall where I always see a Dramamine flashback. I see it every day. It looked like a piece of paper with a list written on it, but this time I passed it without seeing it and I asked my boyfriend where the rules went. I explained it to him and told him they were gone now. We shrugged and went downstairs back into my apartment. We started to go into our bedroom, which looked normal when we first went into it. My iPod was playing different music than what was playing out where his friend was, and it gave an entirely different feeling to us. We felt calm and close to each other and we lay there for a few minutes just looking around. The ceiling has a stucco pattern in it and it looked like butterflies bordered in pearlescent rainbow colors. It was beautiful and I loved it. The papier-mâché butterflies I have hanging from my ceiling swayed to both of us and the dotted pattern on their wings traveled around and around their outline. The color book picture on my wall swelled and shrank in the stars and it twirled. It was very cute looking to me at the time. I went out because we wanted to start collecting stuff again and I smoked some more weed before going back in with our stuffed animals from earlier. We only stayed for a couple minutes more when I went back to our room because we missed our friend and wanted to hang out with him. We drew some stuff for a while and I began to feel like a little girl and I felt like my boyfriend was a little boy and his head got bigger like a little kid's proportions and his eyes got bigger also like a little kid's. I thought he looked cute rather than scary and really enjoyed it. I allowed myself to also feel little, which might explain why I was obsessed with pink and purple as well. I also like yellow and orange a lot more now, especially along with pink and purple. I have always felt like I haven't grown up mentally even though I know more things as I get older. I feel the same in my head that I had since I was in kindergarten, but after being a little kid again and growing up and learning after the whole trip, this feeling was gone and I feel grown up now. We colored and wrote down lots of things before we wanted to go outside again. I wasn't particularly fond of outside, but my boyfriend wanted to have a good trip too and I thought he was looking for something in his trip that was outside, so I said we could go. We walked outside a long ways, halfway around most of my apartment building's complex until we found the playground. My boyfriend wanted swings, but there were none, so he went down the slide while I was distracted by a bunny a few yards away. I walked toward it and told our sober friend that I saw a bunny. I really liked the bunny and the grass around him looked like peacock feathers. I got really happy again and our friend asked me if I thought the rabbit might have some tea. I thought that it might be a possibility, so I said maybe excitedly and I walked towards the bunny more. I wanted to ask him if he did have tea, but he hopped away and my boyfriend was also done sliding. A car went by and startled us and some people were walking around getting home from the bar and I got a little nervous again. Our friend said we should keep on walking to see what else was outside and we continued to walk around the complex. As we walked, my boyfriend and I talked and the number 4 kept coming up over and over again. It seemed like we'd each say the same 4 sentences over and over, just in different places. I kept saying it's cyclical. He got confused and we stopped talking a lot because I was getting upset about the same things being said over and over. We got halfway back to my building when I thought I saw 2 cops. I got incredibly scared and convinced myself within a couple seconds that we'd been reported for suspicious activity all night and that they were following us. I started walking really fast and I got so upset that I started gagging like I was going to puke. We walked down to my building and went inside and I puked all over the floor. I ran inside my apartment, upset that I left a vomit trail for the imaginary cops to my door, and I rinsed out my mouth and my hands in the bathroom while I realized that I was on acid and that I was doing nonsensical things. Our friend cleaned up the hallway while my boyfriend tried to calm me down. I was so confused. I knew my reality was different, but the cops was the only thing that could be in my trip and real life, so it took my boyfriend and our friend about 40 minutes to convince me that I had made up the cops and that there were none at all. We all agreed not to go outside again until it was light, and I felt better, and after time had gone by with no one at our door, I was fine again. For the rest of the night I was happy because as we made our acid art I realized how good I am at sketching and allowed myself to be continually good at it. My boyfriend and I were drawing together now instead of on separate paper, and we realized that it was better this way because we could trip cooperatively happily and teach each other and learn a lot of things. Near the beginning of our drawing my boyfriend and I started confusing each other again and he said, "It is cyclical." I said, "See?" And from then on, we were completely cooperative in our tripping. I was saturatedly happy and found that if I was thinking something, my boyfriend would say it exactly as I had thought it. I liked this and felt linked to him by this. We filled tons of pages without theories on what a trip is and different things we had questions about in life. We watched The Yellow Submarine several times, loving it each time. It didn't warp because it made so much sense when we watched it on acid. It's like it was tripping with us. We stayed happy the rest of the night and hung out with our friend, made art and wrote stuff down. We thought that babies might see what acid trippers see when they are happy in heaven and when they're born until they grow out of it. I also felt that every classification of importance for living things is completely unvalidated and ridiculous. My tolerance for people of different races and classes was completely renewed, and I felt like my little animals were just as important as any of us humans in the room. We also found out that we had complete control of our trips and how happy they could be just by wanting it to go a certain way and simply allowing it to. We also got a couple periods of time for 2 to 5 minutes where everything would completely clear up and look normal again before we'd start tripping out completely again. We just expected things to be good and they were. I also wanted to be left-handed and simply allowed myself to be. I can still do it now, 3 days after the trip. We looked in the mirror for a while together and I looked at myself, changing from resembling a tiger all the way to making myself smile and look like the Cheshire Cat from Alice earlier. It was fun. I made us a giant breakfast at around 5:48 a.m. of toast, eggs and hamburger with cheese on a communal plate. I just kept adding to it because I knew that it would turn out amazing. The noises that came from the oven were so noisy. The hood vent was incredibly loud and I could just hear everything at once so sensitively. I remembered to turn off all the burners on the stove and to turn the oven off too. After we ate, our friend put up the picture he made us all night in the kitchen and we discussed what we liked about it and how good it was. As we stood in the kitchen, I could hear our speech echo around in my ears and it made me laugh because it was so odd. After that, our friend went to bed and we went into our room, too. We opened the blinds a little bit and saw that it was approaching sunrise. I made some more art out of my crossword puzzle book by pasting it into a flower and gluing buttons I had in a jar on it too. I really liked it, and then we decided to turn the black light on and lay in bed together. The black light was amazing. All the colors it turned things in the room to were beautiful. We watched as a pink bracelet I had on turned from light yellow back to pink, to yellow and back again, over and over. We were quite amused for a while before we decided to go shower and try to sleep. We tripped each other out in the shower by recalling things that happened the night before. We got out and went back into our room where my boyfriend took pictures of me because I decided that I was beautiful without any makeup on and that I wanted to remember this later. We sat on the floor and smoked again and took pictures until the battery on his camera died. We had sat for an hour and 10 minutes. We laughed because it only seemed like 5 minutes. We lay back down and I tripped for the next 5 hours before trying to wake my boyfriend up, who got about 2 hours of sleep. We got ready and headed out to see my parents for lunch. The day was lovely and we felt trippy still and just very, very happy. We realize now that we refrained from swearing for 2 days after and that we only just got back to normal feeling about 4 days later. We both had depression pretty badly before we tried acid, but even now we are not having problems with it whatsoever. I even had some sexual side effects from my depression, like having low to no sexual response to advances made by my boyfriend, but now we have normal sex where we both get excited in a synchronized way. We miss each other very badly when we are not together after being together during that whole night's events now. We can't stand to be apart even more than before we did acid together. We both agree that it was one of the best life experiences we've ever had and that we learned so much from trying it. I do want to do it again, but it was so special to me that I probably won't do it more than 4 times in my whole life, so I can remember each trip separately and vividly. Overall, this was a very good life experience and I think it went well because we researched it, surrounded ourselves with a good, sober friend who helped us to play into the good parts of our trips, and also with the movies, music and activity of drawing that we chose. It was definitely worth completely trashing our house that had been clean for the preceding 2 weeks. We are all back to normal now, including the house that is clean again, and we treasure and pore over the art we made and the pictures that were taken all throughout the night. We'll always remember this.